If you move your body, you're probably looking for an edge. We all are, right? But let's be honest, the world of performance is just cluttered. It's full of quick fixes, expensive supplements, and a ton of confusing advice. It can feel impossible to know what actually works. So today, we're going to cut through all that noise and build a really simple framework, the Performance Pyramid.
So what is it? What's the actual evidence-backed secret to improving your endurance, your fitness, your whole game? Well, that's the big question we're going to answer right now.
And here's the spoiler. It's not a single magic bullet. Nope. It's a structure, it's a pyramid. And we're going to build it together, from the ground up, starting with the most important part of all, the foundation. Because if you get this part right, everything else just falls into place.
All right, let's lay that first, foundational layer. This isn't about your fancy workout plan or your gear. It's about something deeper, something that underpins every single thing you do. It's your hidden health.
Now to talk about endurance, we have to talk about VO2 max. You've probably heard the term. It's basically the key metric that measures the size of your aerobic engine, how good your body is at taking in oxygen and putting it to use. The bigger your engine, the more potential you have. Simple as that.
So, how do we build a bigger engine? Well, the answer might actually surprise you. A recent 2024 study focused on a group of young women, and it looked at one of the most basic and honestly most overlooked building blocks in our bodies, iron.
The researchers found a number that tells a really powerful story, and that number is 0.723.
So what is that? Well, 0.723 is the direct correlation they found between the women's iron stores and their VO2 max. Now, on a scale to 1, that is a very strong link. Put it this way, the less iron they had, the smaller their aerobic engine was, period. Without that basic nutrient, your performance is capped before you even lace up your shoes. That's our foundation.
Okay, foundation is solid. Now let's move up to the biggest, most critical part of the whole pyramid, how you actually train that engine.
When you look at the guidelines, there are really two main paths. On one side, you have traditional, moderate exercise, longer, steadier stuff where you can still chat. On the other side, you've got high-intensity interval training, or HIIT. This is half the time commitment, but the intensity is through the roof. You can barely squeak out a few words. The real game changer here, it's all about intensity.
And that intensity really matters. As Dr. Martin Gibala, who's a pioneer in HIIT research, puts it, more vigorous exercise can potentiate the gains. In other words, intensity acts like a catalyst. It's an amplifier for improving your fitness, especially that all-important VO2 max.
But here is a super important point. Boosting your VO2 max isn't just for athletes trying to win races. It is one of the single most important markers we have for your overall health and how long you live. A bigger engine doesn't just make you faster, it makes you way more resilient. Just how resilient? Well, let's look at another number, and this one should really get your attention. 80%. A massive, landmark study from 2018 found that people with the highest levels of fitness, we're talking the absolute highest VO2 max, had an 80% reduction in their risk of dying from any cause compared to the people with the lowest fitness. Let that sink in. Training with intensity builds your engine, and that engine is directly tied to a longer, healthier life. So, we've got our solid foundation of health, and we've built a powerful engine with smart training. Now, let's go to the very top of the pyramid. That tiny little piece that gets all the attention, but frankly, has the smallest impact. Supplements.
This quote just frames it perfectly, doesn't it? Supplements don't build the foundation or the engine. They're just the icing on a cake that's already been really well baked. And if the cake itself is no good, who cares about the icing?
So what does the science say about that icing? It's a real mixed bag. A lot of the popular stuff, like BCAAs and ketones, the data just isn't there. Others, like beetroot juice, might give a tiny benefit if you're a recreational athlete. Really, the only standouts with good evidence are caffeine, which helps reduce how tired you feel, and sodium bicarbonate for those super short, intense efforts. The key here is to be really selective, because most of it is just hype.
Okay, so we've built our pyramid. We've got a solid health foundation, a powerful engine from smart training, and a tiny bit of icing from a few targeted supplements. But you know what? There's one more element we have to talk about, a hidden force that affects every single layer. What if I told you that the most powerful performance enhancer wasn't something you could eat, drink, or even a specific way you could train? What if it's something you already have right now? And that brings us to our final number for today. Roughly 25%. Where does that number come from?
Well, get this. Research shows that about a quarter of the effect you get from even a proven supplement like caffeine can be explained by the placebo effect. In other words, a huge chunk of the benefit comes just from your belief that it's going to work. Your mind is an incredibly powerful part of this whole equation.
And that leaves us with one final thought. We focus so much on the physical stuff, the training, the nutrition, the supplements, but if your own belief can account for a quarter of the effect of a powerful stimulant, what does that say about your untapped potential? If your mind is that powerful, what are you really, truly capable of?